In the congregational tradition, we operate using a call system rather than a denominational appointment system when choosing a minister. What that means is that we put together our church's profile, and ministers put together theirs, and profiles are then exchanged, a courtship ensues, and eventually the minister and the church get married. This past year, I was honored to be the search committee co-chair, along with my longtime friend, Sarah Vredenberg. As is usually the case, the search committee looked at many ministerial profiles, conducted several telephone visits, and ended up doing a couple of Skype interviews. To say that Reverend Nanette Pitt impressed the search committee is something of an understatement. She blew us away. So what attracted us to call Reverend Nanette? Well, we found her to be spiritually grounded, and she challenged us to think about where we are and where we wanted to go, both personally and as a church. And as she is fond of saying, she is here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Nanette is progressive, organized, welcoming, and caring. She's well educated, having graduated summa cum laude from Simmons College. Nanette has served several churches here in the United States with distinction. She's a whiz technologically, having set up several church websites. She has a theater background and has organized her own company. And she's a hard worker. Maybe too hard, because we're trying to make sure that she doesn't burn out. And social justice is among her highest priorities. Nanette is an ordained United Church minister, United Church of Christ minister, and the first female senior pastor in the 183-year history of the First Congregational Church of Akron. And she told us that the accent comes for free. But what is most important for today's service, honoring the work and the memory of Dr. King, is that Nanette grew up in South Africa during the apartheid era. And she participated in the border crossing immersion experience to Israel and Palestine with Andover Newton Theological School and Boston University as a part of her Master's of Divinity Studies. Nanette began her ministry here at First Congregational in September of 2015, and she brings a world view here that we have never had. Both the members and of this church and Pastor Nanette firmly believe that God has called her to serve this church and the Akron community. This is why she is meant to be here today as both our senior minister and our keynote speaker. Please welcome the Reverend Nanette Pitt.
My thanks to you, to our Mistress of Ceremonies, Minister Peggy Holmes, to Billy Sewell and the Martin Luther King Coalition. It is a pleasure to be with you this evening. I wonder if you would gather your hearts and pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts rise as a fragrant offering in your sight, Holy One, God divine. Amen. So welcome again on behalf of this church community where I am blessed to serve. Here at First Congregational Church of Akron, we cherish a heritage of welcoming others and reaching out to stand in unity with our sisters and brothers of all cultures, creeds, races, and faith traditions. So welcome indeed to this Interfaith service. Tonight we celebrate the life and the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I am honored, truly honored, to have been invited to give this address. I'm new to Ohio, as you have heard, and so I am so deeply appreciative, too, of the remarkably warm welcome I have received from the Akron community since my arrival last September. I can tell why folk who say that they are from Akron, whether they live here or in other places where I've met them, feel such pride in this city. My husband, Stephen, and I moved here from Connecticut, and we lived in Boston, Massachusetts before that. And Larry has sort of ruined this joke because, as you no doubt realize, I don't have a Boston accent. We are indeed South Africans. We are immigrants, having arrived in this country 16 years ago. We thought we were only coming for 2 years, but it turns out God had another plan. Don't you know? And 2016 is a special year for us. It's a year we've been anticipating for some time now, because this year we will be able to apply for citizenship. And as those of you who have walked this journey or walked next to somebody who has taken this journey, you'll know that this is a special time. It's a time of nostalgic celebration, a time when you hold dear all of your motherland that made you who you are. And yet, when you step toward a new allegiance and a new homeland, amid the idealized vision of the American dream, this romanticized notion that so many chase after, like the proverbial carrot in front of the donkey, the idea of homeland is one that the United States of America and its inhabitants have struggled with and for so long now, a struggle that continues today. As I mentioned, I am a child of the African soil. My heart burns with the fire of the African sun. But friends, I was raised a white South African amid a state-sanctioned racial segregation system called apartheid. Now, I am blessed to have grown up in an era when the tide of oppression was turning in that country. I am blessed to have come of age as Nelson Mandela was released from prison. Can I have an amen? Amen. And I was blessed to have seen a democratically elected government come to power in that country in 1994. So I knew of the role that the United States and many other foreign powers had played in bringing about change in South Africa, of supporting boycotts and divestment and sanctions. I knew of slavery as a part of a colonial instrument that had reached its claw across our world, affecting all of its corners from India to Africa to the United States. And in the United States, slavery was ended. The world's superpower was now a land of freedom, justice, and plenty for all, and now stood for good and right in the world, and supported the freedom struggle in my own country, where by nothing less than a miracle, a peaceful transition in government was achieved. So when I arrived in Boston in 2000, friends, it was wearing rose-tinted glasses. I had this notion stripped as I peeked through those glasses and saw all the people of color on one train line going toward Dorchester and Roxbury. And when I asked, I was told, oh, it's not racism, it's economics. Then I listened and I learned, I grew in my understanding of the pernicious nature of oppression, redlining, Jim Crow laws, xenophobia about the immigrants as they arrived through Ellis and Angel Islands in waves, Catholics, Jews, Polish, Asians, Muslims, Hispanics. And I learned of the links between racism and economics, education, incarceration, poverty, and possibility. I realized then that while many strides had been made here in the United States and in South Africa and many other countries, there is work for each and every generation. There is work in each and every time and place. There is work for you and for me. There is work for us to do, friends. We celebrate today the great strides that Dr. King and all who marched and worked alongside him made in the era and the struggle for civil rights. We celebrate so much of what we can so easily take for granted today, that people have the right to sit any place on a bus, that people have the right to enter a store and purchase something, that people have the right to enter into public office, even that of the President of the United States of America. Amen. Amen. And yet, my friends, and yet we know we have a long way to go. We know that there is work yet to be done, and if not you, who? If not now, when? We know that despite all that this great nation does achieve as a melting pot, many are not comfortable seeing a hijab as American, darker skins as American. For all too many, the knee-jerk reaction in defining American is white-skinned and Christian. There are many who have lived here for generations who still struggle with the notion of homeland, who remain strangers in a strange land. But we celebrate the legacy today, the legacy of the prophet and pastor of this nation, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. It was Dr. King who let his prophetic imagination soar, who invited others to join him in dreaming of the country that could be, the country that should be. It was Dr. King who said that he had the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere could have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. It was Dr. King who strategically combated the violent underpinnings of oppression through creative, non-violent direct action based in love. Radical, inclusive, proactive love. He defined justice as love correcting that which revolts against love. He called love the summum bonum of life, its greatest and highest good, the principle that stands at the center of the cosmos. Love. It was Dr. King who, on the night before he was assassinated, preached that he had been to the mountaintop, that he had looked over, and friends, he had seen the promised land. The promised land of racial harmony, the promised land of embrace for all, of welcome for the stranger, the promised land of peace with justice for the last and the least. A land that stretched beyond mere tolerance into a beloved community. A community diverse in race, origin, faith, and economic circumstance. A beloved community where despite any difference, despite every difference, we recognize, as Dr. King wrote, that we are caught in a network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. When is it that a people of conscience, a people of faith, you and I, when is it that we need to let our prophetic imaginations soar? When is it that we bring our voice to bear in the here and now as we strive in our time to realize that promised land? When we hold to the ideal of love and see a world around us revolt against it at every turn? When is it that we step out in justice, love correcting that which revolts against love? If not you, who? And if not when, friends? Oh, if not now. Friends, if not Akron, where? Amen? As I come to know and love this intrepid buckle of the Rust Belt, this Akron, this Akros, or highest point of Summit County, this city on a hill, I think of that city that could be. A city where vacant houses are home to families, where empty lots flourish with gardens, can I get an amen? Where the un- or underemployed have work, where the immigrants are welcomed and integrated, where every child has access to excellent education. Amen? Amen. Where black, brown, pink, and yellow, we form a rainbow of diversity that strengthens the fabric of our community, and where together we are a light to the nation. It's going to take work, friends. Work for you. Work for me. Work for us together. Work in our generation as we pick up Dr. King's legacy, as we continue to ascend to the mountaintop. For friends, the promised land awaits. If not us, if not now, if not Akron, amen.